that have actually done really well for it. But in 2009, we had gone to some shows during that year time. We talked to a lot more people, and we realized that if we wanted to be a seed stock company, which would be raising and selling alpacas, and in conjunction with using their fleece and producing a fleece that was valuable on all aspects, that we really needed to purchase some other animals other than those 11 to make that happen. In 2010, we attended the generic advancement sale hosted by Don and Julie Skinner. They were the original owners of Snowmass alpacas. And with that, we were there to purchase, I'm sure you've heard of Matrix. We had great aspirations of being able to purchase Matrix, but in a very short period of time, less than 4 minutes, he sold for $675,000, and it kind of took us out of the game. But while we were there, there was one male in particular, Snowmass Matrix Rose, which was one of his sons that we had looked at. And we ended up purchasing Snowmass Matrix Rose, Snowmass Reserve, and Snowmass Premonition. And from that purchase, those animals are what started our advancement towards being a breeding stock company. Now, would I recommend, and we don't recommend people making purchases of males like that when you don't have the females to complement it. And that's something that it took us a while to learn that. But we always tell people, make sure that you have the good females that are going to complement the males that you purchase. It's sometimes better to go out and look at males that somebody else owns for a while until you know exactly what you want. But with that, there was the other thing that came about by that was there was a female in the auction that didn't sell. There were actually 3 of them, and one of them was Snowmass Sizzling Sunshine. We went to Julie and Don and asked them after the sale, would there be a chance if we could purchase one of those females? And they said, sure, pick which one we wanted. And we ended up picking Snowmass Sizzling Sunshine. And from that purchase came Snowmass Mr. Sizzling Rose. Out of pure luck. I mean, I can't explain that anymore. Yes, we did some research on it, but it basically was flip a coin when it came down to making a choice of those 3 females. And from that, we lucked out tremendously. And that gave us a birth from Matrix within that same year. In fact, he was born in June of that same year in 2010. And so now we had a baby from Matrix Matrix Rose, who was going to be our kingpin in our breeding program, or that's what we wanted him to be. Later on, we had been boarding some animals for a friend of ours, and they decided they were going to go out of the business, but they had some females that they had purchased at that same Snowmass auction, and we ended up taking custody of those. And all of those animals have been premier in our breeding program. Cashmina, Sunset Dreams, Matrix, Breckenridge. Still, these girls are approaching 12, 13 years old now, and they're all have been top knot, and still Matrix Breckenridge in particular still is very, very good with her fleece, her fineness, her uniformity, the whole business. Snowmass Canopa Vale has been very, very premier in our program as well. She paired with Mr. Sizzling Rose produced Val d'Isere. So these females, there was a lot of discussion and a lot of evaluation of them before we decided to take custody of them. But that's another advancement that we made there. In 2013, Crescent Moon Ranch, I'm sure you've heard of them. They were downsizing, and we bought about 1/3 of their herd and we got a lot of foundation females. Most of them were pregnant and or had a cria at side. So that gave us another set of females to work with. And we include and also included in that were some herd sires that we could use. Then in 2000 and what was it? I can't read my thing here. Can't remember the exact date. When we at the next time that we moved through, we were approached by Amber Autumn Auction. They were starting their auction to be able to uh put a male in the auction that was that would highlight their auction very well. We decided that we would do Mr. Sizzlin' Rose. Little did we know we had 4 cria from him at the time, so we weren't exactly sure what he would do. But we decided we needed to get our name out there selling animals, and so we put Mr. Sizzlin' Rose in. And Amber Autumn looked at him, Daryl, and he said, "No, I'm buying that animal." And through them and through discussions with them, a year later, we ended up buying half interest back of Mr. Sizzlin' Rose. Again, a decision that was made that helped us out tremendously. These are some of the photos that just take us through. To see on the bottom left hand, that is Don and Julie Skinner on the far left, and some other people. Those are the 3 males that we bought. And then on the upper right are our kids and their spouses, just a picture of them. So let's go on. Whoops, went the wrong way. History. I go the wrong way. I'm going the wrong way. There we go. To present, we've really opened up and tried to look at how we were going to make breeding choices, what we needed to do to get the animals that we wanted with that higher frequency of crimp, the denser fleeces, the full coverage all over, the phenotype on how the animals looked, and get the heavier weights with the fleece. All of that stuff we had to go in, talk to people about, see what we needed to do with our animals and put them in the proper perspective. And so all of that to present, we still do that on a very regular basis. We have to evaluate what we want. But from what we do with the breeding tools that we use, oops, let's go back one. Sorry, playing with the computer. We do how we evaluate our animals and make those breeding decisions. We start basically from the time they're born. We look at them, then kind of get an idea with them. It's really hard to tell anything from a brand new cria. Sometimes you're lucky and they show you some really nice traits. But we evaluate them at 3 months, 6 months, and 12 months. And a lot of times in between, because we're making evaluations, are we going to take any of them to shows after they turn 6 months of age? And in that evaluation, we are evaluating their bite, their conformation, and we use a scale, and you can see a picture of it, a 1 to 5 scale. Now, in some of the earlier evaluations, we may just say 5 being the highest, that we'll rate this animal as a 3+ or a 4+. Very seldom do we get the 5 in up to 5 in that 3 to 6 months range. Sometimes at 12 months, we know that we really like what we see here. But when we're going through our individual evaluations of them, we're evaluating their density based on that 1 to 5 scale, their crimp style, their fineness, the uniformity of the fineness and the crimp style, as well as color. How bright are they? Definitely their bite and any other conformational issues. And another really important thing for us is their demeanor. I'm sure you're all pretty much aware of this. Do you guys use the body scoring thing for evaluating animals?
Yeah, we
It
do.
works out really well for us because we have a lot of animals and not a lot of time to put them on the scale. Now, the babies, we definitely do that, the younger animals, but our older animals probably get evaluated unless we notice that there's a weight problem. you actually get on the scale a couple times a year, and the rest of the evaluations are done with body score. And sometimes it's the body score that, excuse me, we're gonna get this. Sorry about this, guys. I'm having an issue here with this. Can you control it?
Yeah, give me 1 second. I'll load it up this end.
I can control it from the side here, but can you still see it?
Yeah, well, you can see it's just slightly smaller. If that's easier, do it that way around. Or I can load
Yeah,
it.
it's easier for me to do it.
Yeah, do it.
Definitely easier.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, because you've zoomed on them.
All right. All right. So we're going to be here, pedigrees and birth records. This is a really important thing that you evaluate every time you're trying to put two animals together. So you know what their ancestral line is, you know what they've produced, or you try to verify as much as you can on that. And registered animals, obviously, that makes it 10 times easier. If you don't have a registered animal, you don't have that background easily to look up. Knowledge of that is what makes a lot of your breeding decisions a lot easier and makes the strengths to moving forward with your breeding decisions. If you're breeding without that, you're basically breeding blindfolded, and you're most likely going to either not make the advancements you want or be really inconsistent in knowing what you're putting together by those ancestral lines, by what their their offspring have been produced by them. So all of those things are really important. The other thing that's important is your birth records of your own individual animals. So maintaining those, and they're sometimes it can be difficult and time consuming to do that, but all the way down from birthing east to gestational complications, if there are any. And that's on both males and females. Like we have a male that produces, in fact, he's out of about 30 some cria he has on the ground. There's only two males, the rest are females. So he produces females consistently, but it takes him 20 minutes to make up his mind once he's got the female down to settle in and actually get to the business. So we have to evaluate that, and we still breed him, of course, but we know that we have this issue of him liking to dance behind the females before he decides he's actually going to breed them. So all of those records are important to keep. EPDs, micron test, coefficient of inbreeding, and all the genotyping that's all been done and available are all very important things to do to keep abreast of. Not a single one of those, however, should be put as your primary reason for putting two animals together. Um, Combined with all of the other personal records that you have of the individual animals and all of these things, that's what you should be making your decision of. So EPDs, you can look at them and see when you put two animals together what the progeny is, expected to perform or come out of that. But I guarantee you that there's going to be differences, and that's all I can say is it's only one item that you can look at to see how to evaluate what you might be getting from a pairing. Same with micron test. Micron test, I don't know if you've had, sometimes we'll submit tests for several years on an animal, and you'll get a test back and you go, wow, what happened here? So if I relied on strictly on that one test, it could have been the weather, the type of feed that we were feeding him that affected that micron test. and everything that goes into that, I might not use that animal for that year, and that may be a downfall. So I have to put those all together and watch on those micro tests if you're doing consistent ones to look at them and see how that pans out in the end and make decisions on what you're actually visually seeing in your animal that you're getting ready to breed, whether it be a male or a female. And because a lot of people go outside to use males outside for breeding, you need to be asking the questions of, getting that all of that information from them, pictures of their fleeces, getting the opportunity to go to shows. That's why I like going to shows. You can actually physically inspect animals and look at them and see, exactly what they like and do they match up with what you want. Coefficients of inbreeding. I know a lot of people have problems with uh, any kind of inbreeding whatsoever, but it allows you to kind of stack the good qualities up and give an animals better chances of getting those characteristics that you're going for. So we do some inbreeding, not real close, but we do some inbreeding. Color genotyping, this is just coming out in the last few years. It's helpful, there's no doubt about it, but just remember that it is still percentages that you're given. So there's no guarantees exactly what's going to happen. It just makes the guess a lot more predictable. Um, we use it. We don't use it, as a we don't for first of all, we do not breed strictly for one color. We breed for fleece style and the type of animal that we want, not necessarily the color. The judges' evaluations, and this comes from what I like about shows. It's not so much about winning the ribbon. Obviously, that's great, but you get an individual look at your animal and you can listen to what they're saying about them and you lose that barn blindness. Have you ever heard that term, barn blindness? To where, oh wow, I really think this animal is great. It's uniform in color and micron and the whole business. And the first time you show them to the judge, say it's a very beautiful fleece, but it's not uniform in micron across the blanket, or it's not very dense. All of those evaluations that you get from the judge are a very important part, and it's just that third party evaluation that is very helpful. Our location, our location for making some of these decisions, um, uh, where we're at, is has both positives and negatives with it. We're right at the base of the mountain, the Rocky Mountains. We're very dry normally, um, but that plays a uh, very intricate, very important part in what we're doing with our animals and producing the kinds of fleeces and the animal in general that we want. Um, for the benefit, just in talking about the animals in themselves, our climate is easy for them to adapt to, both in hot and cold weather. And because we don't have the moisture, we're dry. We have a very low parasite issue in our environment, so that's very helpful for them. We have a very good vet hospital in our area, about 45 minutes away from us. So if we have problems, we can take animals there. We do that if we have really serious problems. Our mobile vet is excellent for us in our breeding, making our breeding decisions, because he is a canid reproduction specialist as well as equine, and he works with all kinds of livestock. But he helps us a lot in making those breeding decisions as far as evaluating the animals. Are they ready to breed? Um, that kind of stuff, keeping us from overbreeding certain females that we are maybe having some difficulty with. The negatives of where we're at, we depend totally on Mother Nature for our water and our pasture growth. And that includes the rain in the summer and the snow in the winter. In the winter, we have extremely high winds. 3 weeks ago, from Friday to Sunday, we had sustained winds in the 60-mile-an-hour range with wind gusts up to 100. And with the temperature that was down, we were below freezing because of the wind. And so that the high wind is a really big thing that's hard to deal with the number of animals that we have. So that's the real negative with it. Uh, Large amounts of snows on occasion can make it very difficult for us to take care of 300 animals plus. We have the barns to put them in, but just the general getting to them sometimes, because we do have about 100 animals that are just our fleeced animals altogether, and they're pretty much free range. But when the weather gets really bad, they get brought in as well, and sometimes it's just difficult to get to them. The other thing that we have to deal with because of our weather are drier fleeces, depending on the wind. And there's when when we have that, we have to know that it's there. We have to um, take some precautions with it that we can. Sometimes putting blankets on them will help. Uh, there's just you just have to be aware of that in the whole business. Um, Herd protocols. We're asked to go over what we do in our protocol business. Our protocols, we're um, we're probably a lot different than most people in this because initially I think we're the same because once we have the mom has a baby, we put them in a birthing pen for about a week and we watch them very closely, make sure they're bonded well, baby's gaining weight, and we know the baby's gaining weight because we weigh them every day, and we do that for at least 6 months and sometimes a little longer, depending on how well the animal goes when we start to wean them and take them away from mom. We give first shots to a cria on the day after they're born. They get a AD&E shot. A month old, they get their Covaxin 8 shot, which is their vaccination. And at 6 months, they get their Covaxin 8 again, which is their yearly. So now they're good for a year. And then they also will get depending on when they're born, they might get another vitamin shot at that point. In the winter months, Koreas also get their A&D shots in November, January, March, and May, and we do their trimming of their teeth or their nails if they're needed. The reason we do this November, January, and March, again, is because of our weather. The AD&E can help because their fleeces are starting to grow. They're getting thicker at this point, and with the weather, these really help with a lot of different things: muscle growth, um, just general health in all the way around with the Krias. And of course, our Krias are BVD tested within the first 60 days of their life. So we do that. We take that very seriously. We do not allow animals on the ranch that aren't BVD tested, and that includes pregnant females or females that are coming to be bred that have a Kria outside. The Kria has to be tested, or we don't let them on the ranch at all. The other important thing that we believe is that besides the vitamin shots and dealing with that is crias that sometimes have slightly angulated legs or kind of on the weak side. We really believe in that they need to be outside and they need to be running around and playing and developing that muscle. And most of the time, they will correct some of those issues they have in legs just simply by using them, being developing the muscles that they need, um, and of course supplementing them with the vitamins that also helps as well. Our adult protocols, they get vaccinated annually. They get their A&D shot at that same time. It's either going to be a shot or a paste. Most of the time, our breeding animals, our females and our herd sires get a shot that well. We do the shot versus the paste. We know that they get it then. With the paste, it's not uncommon to go out and see where you've walked away from them and then they've went and spit it on the back of their buddy because they don't like the taste of it. So the shots work better for us. Um, but we do use the paste as well. And then depending on the health and the valuation of the animals when we do that, the adults, we also can put them on the winter protocol for the vitamin shots. Female pregnant protocols. Several years ago, we had problems with a lot of torsions, and we really couldn't figure out why. I mean, we were having um, probably that one summer we had at least 6 or 7 torsions. And so our vet said, well, we are going to try something. It's not proven, but I want you to give your pregnant females at when they're 30 days out from delivery. That's when we give them their vaccinations anyway. But we gave them, then we started giving the Vital E 500, which is a pretty strong dose of E. And the reason that we do this, he said, that vitamin E works for muscles. The uterus is a muscle. We want to make that muscle as strong as it is. Most of the females, most of their rolling and doing around when they're uncomfortable, the later stages of their pregnancy, we want that uterus to be as strong and tight as we can get it to function, and maybe we won't get as many torsions. It was just a test that we made, and from that point on, um, I know we didn't have any torsions at all last year, and probably in the last 4 or 5 years, we might have had 3 or 4 total. So out of a total of 60 to 80 births a year, that made a great improvement as far as I can see from that. The other thing that we do with our maiden females is that they all get ultrasounded. And we like to wait until about 22 months to breed our females. So they will be ultrasounded to see if they have follicular activity, and if so, then we can proceed. A lot of times you can get females just like in people that aren't quite ready at that just because they made the age, they're just not quite there yet. And so if you continually try to breed them, they might be submissive to some degree and the male can get them down and actually breed them, but you can actually do some injury to the females. So we always ultrasound our maiden females to make sure that there's follicular activity and there really is a good chance of them getting bred or getting pregnant if they are bred. Another thing that we do is during the pregnancy, we ultrasound at 30 days, 30 to 45 days normally, and again at 60 days. And in that period, uh, we're checking in that after the 30 to 45 days. In that range, we're looking for twins. We're also looking to see that they're pregnant, but we're looking for twins. And that way we know that we definitely have to ultrasound them again. If we're doing it closer to 30, then after 45 days, we want to look at them again and see if the twins are still there. A big chunk of the time they have absorbed or uh, both of them or at least one of them so we can proceed with the pregnancy of one. If not, we have to make the decision. Are we going to terminate this pregnancy now um, with medication so that we can get back on course and possibly have the production from that female this year? We personally have not had luck with um, birthing out live twins. We have had twins that we've missed, and we generally lose them somewhere in the 270-day range. But at that point, you've lost production from that female for the rest of the year. And so we do make that decision if we have twins after the 45 and definitely at the 60-day um, ultrasound if they are still pregnant with twins. Um, And then all of our outside breedings that we bring in, we guarantee the ultrasounds to confirm the pregnancy. And the reason we do that, and we do 3 of them, we want to make sure when we send that animal home that they're going to stay pregnant. And our vet says, yeah, they can go home. And sometimes the weather is hot, and they're going to a climate where it's hotter than what we have. And he'll say, no, hold them for another 30 days because transport for 2 to 3 days in a trailer back there could cause problems for them. So we always know that. We give that guarantee to the people that spend the money to breed to our males, that we wanna make sure that they can maintain that pregnancy on their way home. We also give them that 30-day life cria guarantee, so that with that guarantee, it comes, um that the baby will live 30 days after birth. And so we want all of that pregnancy to be good to give the baby the best opportunity to do that. And we if the baby does die within that 30 days after birth, they can come back and breed to our male, but it's at their expense not to repay for the breeding, but the travel back to the ranch, the we charge them adjusting fees or boarding fees while they're there to do that. So they don't have to pay for the breeding fee again, but they definitely have to help with the cost of getting that animal rebred. So that's why we use the ultrasounds in there. That's part of the reason is to help with it. The other things are routine maintenance is done on a very so the toenails, teeth, that kind of thing is a rotational basis with our animals. And the reason for that is because of the when we give the vaccinations as a cria, there's a time frame where they're due in a year, and not everyone is due at that same time. Nor do we do it at shearing, which a lot of people do. But with the number of animals that we have, shearing is a big enough issue just to get the shearing done and getting it sorted and graded. We don't want to do that kind of maintenance at our shearing. So we do it on a rotational basis based on when their timetable comes up. And that's monthly. There'll be a group of animals that always come up, and that's based on the records that we have. We know that we have to vaccinate. We'll look at toes and toenails at that same time and get that done. That's just a monthly kind of thing that works around with all the animals we have. Fecal testing. We do it as needed and indicated, and it is not routine. And part of that is because of our environment, we don't have the same types of parasite issues that a lot of places do. But we still have to be watching for animals that are displaying that they might have issues, like they have diarrhea or they're not gaining weight or uh, just general things like that. We still have to be very attentive and make sure that we're not missing some of the signs that's showing there could be a and if they are, then we have no problem. We can do them here at the ranch. I prefer to send ones that are having real problems. We send them to CSU, and it's cost effective for us to do that. And we get a turnaround that's pretty quick. So again, there we do them, watch closely, and do them when we feel it's necessary. Feeding our animals. You can see from this picture that we are on the high plains there coming right out of the mountains. And so we have the grasses a lot of it is buffalo grass. It's natural grass that's there in Colorado on the plains. That's what the animals, and there's weeds in there as well. But the animals do very well on this. If we have the water or the snow in the wintertime, that helps us maintain that. Um, but because of that, we feed them a free choice orchard grass hay, and that includes our animals that are out in the pastures all the time, and those would be males. In there around their housing facilities, there's three-sided sheds. They always have a free choice orchard grass hay, and we always test our hay that we have, and we like it in the protein range of 12 to 16%. We do use alfalfa or an alfalfa mixed with orchard grass that's grown that way as a supplemental need, and we use that for our females that have a create side and probably are still pregnant again and having some weight issues. Um, you can see some increased levels if you use a really high protein. We haven't really had that problem because we don't feed alfalfa, say at 18 plus. percent protein on a very regular basis. Um, but you can see some people have seen their micron tests go up because of their protein levels being pretty high. We feed equine senior grain. We have horses here too, and our vet has said that we can feed them this equine senior. It's extremely easy to digest. It helps them with their weight issues. They like it. We can get it in a small pellet, and when we order our grain that we normally have made um, for our alpacas, it it is with a very small pellet. I don't know if any of you have issues with these guys. When you feed them grain, they gobble it up and then they have choke. It can be very dangerous, hard to clear that choke. And even if it has to be done with having them scoped and in there with water, you can do some damage to the tissues in there. So it's really um, we use a very small grain, a size grain with that. But our grain supplement is also it's made based on the testing that we do with our soil that we have done with our soil. So showing what's in our soil, what is naturally there that's given to the grass and everything that they eat there, as well as our hay production. And so those we give that to the person that makes our or the company that makes our grain supplement, and they along with their vets and nutritionists set up a protocol for our grain that we buy. Okay, let's get back to the breeding things and the considerations that we have and what comes to play for us when we make breeding decisions. Obviously, the phenotype is how they evidence by their appearance. We want a certain animal to look a certain way, and we do that based on a lot of things. But everyone has what that perfect animal or should have what that perfect animal looks like based on their phenotype. Genotype is their true genetic makeup, and that is what you get from pairing them together. There's the 30% of the genotype is there in their genes that comes with the animal, but you get an environmental impact in that as well. And they say it's about 70%, and that includes what you're feeding, the climate, and any other trace elements that they may pick up from the environment. The homozygous, this is when two genes are paired, on the chromosome paired together for a particular trait. And that's where the inbreeding comes in for that. If we have, let's just pick something like uh, how we want our fleece to look. We like a very tight crimp. So um, we want to pair two animals together that have that same trait. Or I have a female that is a little bit broader in crimp and I want that to tighten up. I'm going to breed her, make sure that the male that I breed her to has that tight crimp. So you make those kinds of decisions, and that's um, when we do, it makes it easier to do it when you're doing some, not all, inbreeding of some sort. Culling. This is a really difficult thing for everyone to do, but it's extremely important. If you set your breeding program up, you do not want to constantly be breeding the same animals that don't meet your breeding objectives, the type of animal that you want to see come out of your breeding between a male and a female. And if you don't, you know, uh, to a, to get the gain or the production to move forward, you have to cull. There's just no getting around that. And it's difficult to get rid of animals. Doesn't mean that you have to get rid of them completely. If you have the room and the space, you can do like what we do. We have animals that have very nice fleece, and it's good for fleece production and making product from, but not necessarily in making an advancement in our herd. So a lot of our, and particularly our some of the males, will go directly into that what we would call our fleece herd. Doesn't mean all of our other animals don't contribute to that fleece herd or the fleece production, but the ones generally have some other issues, like maybe a bad bite or conformational, they're cowhocked or um something like that. You know, there's some other issue with them that makes them not move forward, make our herd move forward in the breeding choices. And there's an old saying, and my dad raised cattle for years and years, and the one thing that came through with cattle is that of all the bulls that are produced, 1 out of 10 was going to make an advancement in your herd. And I think that has transitioned over to a lot of livestock that out of the 10 males that you produce in your breeding programs, probably one of them is going, maybe two will work to go towards advancement in your herd itself. That does not mean that they won't help advance somebody else's herd that's not at the same level that you are. And that's something that you have to keep in mind with that. Degree of inbreeding again, um, we don't do the really close related relatives, say father to daughter, brother to sister. We're on more on the cousins or great granddad, those kinds of those types of things. But what it does again, it's the concentration of genes for a specific ancestor and their appearance multiple times in the pedigree with the purpose of developing consistency and uniformity of that trait within your herd. So that's what the purpose of the line breeding is for. And it really shows up and has been proven in our herd that those traits that we want, the desirable traits, are coming moving down generation to generation because of some of that line breeding that we do. It's also important to know though that you have to have some um, outsourcing of your breeding so that you can bring in new bloodlines, new genetics into your herd. But when you do that breeding that you're bringing in, you do not want to compromise what you have made designed in your herd as the type of animal you want produced. And that's why we say that everyone needs to know what your perfect alpaca is. And we made this line for us and we follow it fairly strictly. We want a high frequency, high amplitude type merino type style fleece. We want the fleece to be bright. We want it to be uniform in micron and crimp style across the blanket as close as we can. We want density with that fineness, however. Color is not as important to us as the fleece style and the characteristics of that fleece. That does not mean that, like we have a white line that we pretty much try to stay uh, to producing white animals, but our interest at Red Granite Ranch is producing the fleece style and the use of that, how that what that fleece looks like, how fine it is, how dense it is. That is what we hang our hat on the most. Phenotype, we want a strong, stout frame. We do not have extremely large animals. Some of our females tend to be bigger than our males, but we want strong, stout females and males, and we want a full fleeced head. So you can see by this picture here, this is Red Granite Val d'Isere. That's the type of animal phenotypically that we want to have. Demeanor is another really important thing for us. We want our animals to be easy to handle. And this is another, we kind of instill that in our animals from the time they're born. That's why they're weighed every single day, they're handled every single day, not for long periods of time either. They're handled long enough to get them to the scale. We try to get them to walk up to the scale. If they won't, we'll take them up, and eventually we're working them in. We like to take them, even as babies, put our arm around the back of their neck and under their muzzle with our hand and walk them that way. And they might, as a week old baby, they might take 2 or 3 steps. Fine, if that's what they do, and that's all they'll do, we pick them up. We don't want to instill any uh, behavior that says if I fight with them, then I get my way. As soon as they decide that I've walked, we'll pick them up, take them to the scale, put them on it, take them back and give them to mom. So that goes on for the entire time we're weighing them, instilling in that are positive rather than negative interactions with us. And we are known for having some of the most docile and easy to handle animals. And I think that is part of the reason why we have that is that initial um, implanting that we do with our babies. Um, so I'm gonna go back just one here. So this is our what we want in our animal, and if I could instill in anything with you as far as breeding, you need to sit down and document what you want your baby to look like when it comes out and pretty much stick to that. Now you can modify it to some degree, but if you're making decisions and you're constantly changing what you want your perfect alpaca to look like, that is going to come up with the production of your animals. So in order to stay consistent and moving forward, you really need to set that perfect alpaca, whatever yours is. You don't have to have a high frequency, high amplitude crimp. But whatever it is you want in your herd, that's what you need to set out and identify with your breeding choices. Making goals. How do you know that you're doing things right? You don't always, and there are lots of ways to have that come true or to figure out. One of the ways that we figured that we must be doing something right is we're selling animals, and we're selling 20 plus animals a year. Um, and that was something that took us a while to get there, to selling animals that people are making, breeding, and creating animals that people wanted to buy. Um, and that includes worldwide animals, or we've sold animals overseas to a number of farms. They have purchased our animals. So that's another guideline that we must be doing something right and making some of the decisions. Um, we've received we routinely get about 30 outside requests for breedings of females of our males every year. That's another thing that is an indication to us that people are interested in the males that we've produced and want to use those males on their females. And we go through if they produce or they present a female that we don't feel we can help or to come out to what they want, we're going to tell them that we don't want them spending three to our most expensive breeding is $5,000. We don't want them to spend that money and kind of have a baby come out that we're pretty sure we're not going to be able to do the things they want us to do. Our male is not going to be to improve that female to create a baby that they want. So we evaluate those females with them and help them make the choices, not only with the males that they may want to breed with, but we may have better suggestions for them with males that we have. So we talk with them about that. Um, and watching our clients have positive benefits with the animals that we sold them. That's a really big thing, and there's nothing better than to go through. Like we were at the futurity show and auction this past, and we can go through and look at all of the animals that are registered to show in that show, and we have numerous of our animals have contributed to the animal that's being shown by genetics, by either the males well, males and females. But we can see that our breeding program has contributed to that animal that's being shown. That's a real positive for us. And we like that as much as going up and winning the blue ribbon. We just assume one of our production animals from one of our clients has also is able to do that. So that's a real positive for that. And again, uh, having your animals, people ask us constantly, how do we get our animals to behave the way they do? And believe me, we have some that don't behave all the time, but but they do. Here are some of the successes that we've had on animals that these are just some of them. This little guy here, Innsbruck, it's a Sizzy son. We decided to sell him at the futurity several years ago. We had another male, Pecos Pete, this one right here, that showed in the same show. Innsbruck, and we had sold him in the auction. We had sold Innsbruck in the auction. So we competed against Innsbruck with Pecos Pete. Innsbruck beat Pecos Pete. So we had the first and the second, the color champion and the reserve champion. But here are the people that we sold them to beat us in that show. That was a very positive for us. We knew we had made, and they were happy that they were able to purchase an animal of quality that was going to do well. And Innsbruck has done extremely well for them and subsequent people that have purchased him from these original people have done very well in producing fine, very nice animals. Selecting males. Just because he's a champion doesn't mean that I'll use him. And you gotta ask, you gotta ask those things. That he's a champion because of the animals that were evaluated at that given time at that show. Not necessarily am I going to put him with every female that I have. There may be a champion male that I never use for breeding because I have other males that are better and meet my goals much more consistently than he does. Um, I may have a champion male that I've bred once or twice, and the production of his babies is not exactly what I want. And so choosing that male, I may not use a champion male. It's just that simple. But again, it's making sure the male meets the traits that you have determined to fit your perfect alpaca. So if we're consistently breeding a male, he's going to fit as many of those qualities that we've set. He may not fit them all, and there are very few animals, very few, that have every single one of the traits that you would really like. You'd always like to see improvement of some sort with your animal. If nothing else than longevity of the say fineness or staple length, that he stays, his staple length stays longer the older he gets instead of shortening. So not every animal will have all of your perfect alpaca traits, but you want them to have as many as you can possibly have them. And you also want to, once that male has bred, you want to look and see, is his progeny doing him justice, or is he doing the progeny justice and being able to pass on? That also has to be evaluated with the female that you put them with, though. Females are extremely important in this process. They it's the combination as everything you're trying to make. You'll have, when you make a breeding decision, say you have a female that needs one of our things is that we'll get a female that does not have the head coverage that we like. And other than that, she's uniform. She may not have the crimp style as tight as we like, but that's a female that we're going to go in and say, our goals here for this female are to improve her crimp style and her head coverage. We're not going to go in saying we're going to improve everything about her, but we pick the things and breed her to the male that we believe is going to improve those traits that we would like to see improved upon. And then again, you may have some males that you look back on your females and you don't have the females that you need to keep passing on the traits you want to pass on. Excuse me. As far as males, we believe there are 4 types of males. The first one, the most important one, is one that, and these are males. Excuse me, kid. Let me breathe. These are males that we produce that we'll talk about first of all. And then we'll talk about the outcrossing of the males that we go outside for. They're males that are going to improve your herd. Uh, they're males that will could possibly. The second one is the males that could possibly improve somebody else's herd. That's the other 9 that we've said um, are good males, but there's one much better and will do a much better job of the ones we've produced. These are the males that we will offer up for sale. We'll be very honest with people about, what their pluses and their shortcomings are, but these can be still very good males. They're just not going to be ones that are going to improve our herd. The males that are good for production or family fun or just to have around, and a lot of people like to have alpacas around, but maybe they have some other issues, say as one testicle or a bad bite or conformational issues, but they still have a nice fleece. And those animals we keep and we use for fleece production. And those are for production of the fleece to make product from. And those are also ones that we will sell to other people for the same purpose. But we will put them as non-breeding males. We will not suggest that these males in any way should be used for breeding. Then the fourth one are males who are uncontrollable and possibly dangerous. Um, and this doesn't matter how well he fits your perfect picture of the alpaca either. If you cannot handle him, you cannot get him in a small area and walk up to him and catch him without him jumping and running and trying to kick you and or once you get him haltered, he's next to impossible to walk down the alleyway. Or an animal that you wouldn't sell because you would be afraid that the person that you sell it to might get hurt. That male does not belong in your herd. And that is for us is the male that we would call. Um, and so that's an important one to for us that we look at. Impact of the herd sires. There's a limitation to all herd sires, as well as the females that you breed them to, and how well they're going to do your breeding for your program. But with that, the diversity and how many breeders need to be considered, the size of their herd, and the diversity that they want to be. So if you want to stay the consistent like we want to do on that perfect male kind of thing, then you have to decide what the size of your herd, and that includes female. And the diversity of that and the limitation of your males is very much a part of it, because your females is another entity that produces what you need. The other thing that also is important, and for us, this breeding of outside the females takes time away from our females and extends our breeding season. So we have to be careful that we may get lots of people that want to breed to say Valdezere, even though he's closed right now, but we'll just use him as an example. We have to limit that because it affects who we can breed him to in a timely manner for his health, as well as keeping it within our breeding seasons. So that's another thing. That's very much of a limitation that we have on the males that we use for breeding. And it affects all herds of all sizes, you know, what you have to evaluate in there. There is a limitation. Maybe it's your weather. Like in Texas, they breed in the wintertime, and they send us animals that sometimes we cannot get pregnant, so that they will have a baby in the fall of the year or in the winter, their winter, our winter actually, when it's cooler. And so that's a limitation of our males. Can we get this done in a timely manner or with the male they choose so that they can have the baby when they want it to be in his most optimal time of the year for that? Something you got to take into consideration. Just about our males in general, We breed our males on an average 18 to 20 minutes per mating session and nothing longer than 30 minutes. That can affect both the males and the females if you let them breed for long periods of time. Um, it's just not good. Our top males average probably 10 crias, some of them a little bit more than that a year. Our younger ones and up and coming males, we breed we pair them. Again, it's a process of looking to see what we anticipate to produce, but we breed them to as many different types of females as we can so that we can have a diversity to look at those traits when it comes out and see what that male best pairs with females. And that gives us a better idea at the end is what he is also going to pass on with his progeny. Then again, we go back to looking at the EPDs and all of those based on those, what comes about by that. All of that stuff starts going back over and over again. But that those younger males that are up and coming, we try to give them a diversity of females so that we can have something to look at and make decisions with. We were asked to talk about embryo transfer. AOA approved, I'm not exactly sure how many years ago, I think probably 5 or 6 years ago, actually approved registration of Korea born through embryo transfer. We looked at it, a lot of steps involved, a lot of costs involved with it. And I think if we'd have had more of a really solid medical background ourselves, we might have tried it at the time. Um, but looking at it overall and the percentages of the outcome, we just decided that we'd much rather take our chances of breeding that female once, making sure that that male that covers her is right for her, and we get one cria out of her a year that is an honorable cria, is a good solid cria, than taking the chances of doing embryo transfer and maybe not getting anything, not getting them to work. And the percentages for not being able to, for the females, the recipient females to carry those embryos is pretty high of not happening well. So we don't do it. We may do it in the future, but we're not doing it now. Exporting, we just went through. We relied pretty heavily on Amanda Van de Mosch in getting our information from. But as far as just some basics here, currently in Europe and a new Animal Health Act from the United States exported through Canada. United States and Canada protocol is 93 days in quarantine in the United States at a specialized facility. So right now they can't be on a facility that has any other animals. So it has to be a separate, no cows, no horses, no alpacas. So that's that specialized facility. The animals will then move to Canada for a 24-month, and it's for the TB surveillance period and at an approved quarantine. And I am not sure what their quarantine facilities look like there, but they're there for a long period of time, 24 months. In Germany, they're not sold to travel outside due to the TB issues and testing, and this is subject to change, we've heard, in 2026. I don't know, maybe some of you guys know that better than I do. The quarantines usually run here, leaving here, there's one done in the spring and one done in the fall, and it's generally in that September range in the fall. We're getting ready to start
No.
getting animals that we're picking that go. And that again is going to depend on who's doing the facilitating. Again, we use Amanda Van de Bosch. And then Australia's, what I understand, is still currently closed, all of their borders. We have somebody here from Australia, is that true? Okay. What we have to offer, we have sold through the animals outside of the United States. Our genetics can be found out there, and we're willing to do that and work with breeders that want our animals to go overseas. We will sell you high quality females and stud males of different colors and different strengths. So again, that's a process that we would go over. Here's a good example of the type of fleece that we like to see in our animals. Um, and we're happy to talk with you at any time as to the animals that fit maybe your requirements of what you would like to see, send you pictures, videotapes, anything that we can to help make a decision a little better. It is difficult when you talk about 24 months. Well, it's longer than that because you've got the quarantine in the United States and um, as well, another 3 months added to that. So almost 27, 28 months before you ever see the animal that you purchase here in the United States is very difficult. And so there needs to be a lot of communication and trust, and that what we would suggest is something you would really want and what you would probably be happy with. So that's kind of a quick thing that I went through. I probably didn't cover a lot of stuff that you wanted, but I'm open for some questions if anybody has any.
If anyone does have any questions, just unmute yourselves, and then it'd be nice to ask the question yourself if you do. You will unmute.
Hi, Sharon.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you very much. It's been hugely informative. I wanted to ask a question about the feeding. Here we feed something like Camelibra, which is has the required minerals and vitamins that supplements the hay feed and the grass feed. It sounds like the feeds that you've mentioned were only for certain categories of the animal. So if they're underweight or they're feeding or they have some kind of issues, do you routinely feed anything in addition to hay that would contain minerals and vitamins?
Yes, we do. And then that's their standard grain that we have made for us that's based on our, excuse me, our hay testing and our soil testing. And so that will have all the minerals and everything that they deem necessary for a healthy animal that they should have. That is routinely given to all of our breeding females and males on a daily basis. Our ones that are out in the field that are would we consider our free range animals, they get that on a less frequent basis, and it's generally every other day, and that's unless they need it, and then we can we can bring them in, put them in with a different group of animals, and supplement them that way.
Thank you.
Tanya, do you want to ask your question, or do you want me to read it? She doesn't seem to be unmuting herself. Oh, there we go.
I talk very well at the moment. I was just asking if there was an optimal micron you're looking for, and wondered if it can actually be too fine to balance some of the other traits.
We get them all the way. In fact, this past year with our Korea, we've had them as low, our yearlings, because we don't test our Korea fleece. It's their yearling fleece that we test, down to 13 microns. We like our average herd is 18 to 21. That's where the majority of our animals run with. And I do know that there are some for like commercial processing, they'd like to see them a little bit more coarse, not coarse, but say 22 to 24. We have not had problems with our processing of our fleece that have been in that 18 to 21 micron range. Of course, we have ones that are higher as well, but that's where we would like to, we're really happy if we could stay, under the 21 range down to 18, even 16, 17. We'll work with it. And the density, how it affects the density, that's where it's really important. That our crimp style that we have, within the single strand of fleece, when you can feel the density, you know, you actually can take that one strand, the one crimp, and push it together, and you can actually feel its substance there. That you're getting your density in there. And then when you look at that fleece and pull it out, we're still going to be in that 17, 18 range with a lot of our animals. Even some of our older ones, like Valdezaire right now, I believe he is, gotta think of his age here. He's 13 years old, I believe. And but I do know his micron is 22 microns. And so we want to, our biggest change with that micron is keeping it so that the longevity of it stays in, that they creep up higher at a much slower rate, and as they get older. And that is easier, I think, to fix than, I wish I knew how to fix the staple length. That's another one that's, you know, if I could keep them their staple length longer for a longer period of time, I'd be really happy, because we have some females. The female that I mentioned to you, Snowmass Breckenridge, she has a 17 micron fleece, but her staple length now, because of her age, is only about 3.5 inches. So if she could have stayed with her longer fleece, I'd be just tickled pink. That's what I would like to be able to fix, a staple length for longevity.
Thank you. Interesting.
Amazing. Does anyone have any final questions? Any questions, anyone? I'm going to go with Sharon. You've just solved the alpaca industry, and everyone now has everything in their toolkit to what they need to do.
Well, hopefully I didn't confuse, and that I covered what you needed. Again, you know, I thank you for asking us to do this.
I thank you for doing it.
You know, we're open to, you can send us an email, or, you know, contact us, messaging any way that you can. We're glad to answer any questions about the animals that we have here, or anything. So we're open, and so feel free to do it if you have anything. And I appreciate it. Thank you for having us.
No, thank you very much. And if everyone wants to unmute themselves, put the cameras on, give a little round of applause, just a bit of gratitude, a bit of thanks. It was absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much, Sharon.
Thank you. It was tremendous.
The other thing that I wanted, if you want to use this presentation, other than the video that you did, you're more than welcome to use it.
Okay, that's very kind. Thank you. That's
Right.
amazing. Yeah. Well, I think I don't know what time it is out there in Colorado, but it's getting a little bit late here. Everyone probably wants to snuggle down and watch TV, but a lovely evening. Thank you ever so much once again, and I'm sure I speak on behalf of everyone. That was amazing. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.